Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Part 19: Adaptive Phi Controllers and Aesthetic Optimization, the Learning Craft. Remember the language we are learning. There is one field, Phi, the Holophase. One continuous cyclic movement from which all of reality unfolds. When Phi begins to change, its first derivatives appear, and with them, the three dimensions show themselves at once. Time as omega, space as k, and motion as v, built from both. Every higher derivative is a finer question about how phi changes, and each one casts three shadows together: a time shadow, a space shadow, and a motion shadow. These echoes mix and weave into one another, forming the patterns we call fields, particles, bodies, thoughts, and worlds. In this picture, everything that exists is a living tapestry of phi, endlessly echoing through its derivatives and their dimensional shadows. Today, we listen to just one of those echoes. We stand at the summit of Book 10.3, Phi Programming. We have learned to write intentions, debug them, manage them in an OS, and compile them into precise actions. But our programs so far are static. They are like sheet music played by a perfect machine in a silent room. But reality is never silent. The floor vibrates, temperatures drift, materials age, unknown disturbances whisper at the edges of our control. To create anything lasting, we must move from static programs to living learning processes. We must close the final loop. We enter the Adaptive Atelier. Here, the console is alive with real-time data streams. The phi field on the display shimmers with the target pattern, but also with the minute tremors of reality. Your new skill is that of the Adaptive Artisan. You are learning to design programs that watch, learn, and adjust, not through human intervention, but through their own cultivated sensitivity to coherence. This is the transition from programming to cultivating. Scene: the Adaptive Atelier. The air carries a gentle rhythmic hum, the sound of a system breathing. On the central display, a beautiful, high-order optical vortex beam is being held in a trap for ultra-cold atoms. It is a delicate flower of twisted light, a charge +3 singularity. But you can see it wobble faintly, like a soap film in a breeze. Below it, a second display shows the real-time phi error field, the difference between this trembling reality and the perfect, still target. The error isn't random noise, it has a pattern, a slow drift and a fast jitter. To the side, a stream of numbers flows, adjustments being made by the adaptive controller. Tiny, precise changes to mirror positions, laser frequencies, and magnetic field strengths. These adjustments are not frantic. They are smooth, minimal, almost graceful. They are the system learning to hold itself steady. As you watch, the wobble diminishes. The error field fades from a pulsing orange to a calm, faint blue. The flower of light grows still. Our puzzle: how do we design a phi program that can observe its own imperfect execution, diagnose the disturbance, and compute, in real time, the minimal, most elegant correction to restore coherence? And how do we ensure its learning leads to robust beauty, not brittle overfitting? The language role, the cultivation skill. This part teaches a meta-control skill. It is the skill of designing programs that can redesign themselves within bounds to maintain alignment with a goal in a changing environment. Our core question about phi is, given a goal phi pattern and a real-time stream of HLS sensor data showing the actual, disturbed field, what is the optimal online adaptation rule for the control parameters that maximizes the persistence, coherence of the target pattern while minimizing control effort and adhering to aesthetic principles of simplicity and robustness? We are moving from giving commands to teaching discipline. The anchor image, the gardener. We will use the anchor image of a gardener. The target phi pattern is the ideal form of a bonsai tree or a perfect rose. The static program is a rigid trellis. It holds the shape but cannot respond to wind, rain, or uneven growth. The adaptive controller is the gardener themselves. The gardener observes the plant, sensors. They see a branch leaning too far, error. They apply a minimal, thoughtful intervention. A gentle tie here, a careful prune there, control adjustment. They do not hack wildly. They have an aesthetic sense. They know what makes the plant both beautiful and strong. Their goal is not to force the plant into a static mold, but to cultivate its health and form in dialogue with the living world. The coherence selection principle in adaptation. In adaptive control, coherence is dynamic resilience. Constructive resonance, alignment, in adaptation means the controller finds adjustments that align the system with the target despite disturbances. It finds the system's natural, stable modes and nudges it toward them. The resulting state is not just correct, but easy to maintain. It sits in a valley of stability. Destructive resonance, dissonance, means the controller fights the system. Its adjustments create new instabilities, amplify noise, or lead to chaotic oscillations. It is like a gardener who, seeing a lean, yanks the branch so hard it snaps. The adaptive mantra deepens. If coherence breaks, we stop. If coherence returns, we continue. But here, stop might mean the controller pauses its learning, reverts to a known safe policy, and requests a human to check if its sense of the world has become corrupted. The core mechanisms: learning, aesthetics, and safety. An adaptive fee controller blends three advanced mechanisms. Phi native learning, gradient descent on reality. This is the engine of adaptation. The controller has a set of knobs, adjustable parameters in its control law, for example, feedback gains, set points. It measures the phi error, the difference between target and actual phi field. The learning rule. It asks, if I tweak this knob just a little, how will the phi error change? Mathematically, it estimates the gradient of the error with respect to the knob. It then turns the knob against the gradient. If turning knob up makes error worse, it turns knob down. This is gradient descent on the landscape of error. Online adaptation. This happens in real time, within the licensed window of operation. The controller doesn't stop the experiment to learn. It learns as it goes, making tiny, continuous adjustments. 2. Aesthetic cost functions, the cultivator's taste. This is what separates a wise gardener from a frantic one. We don't just minimize phi error. We minimize phi error plus a penalty for ugliness and fragility. Complexity penalty. Does the solution require wildly oscillating control signals? A convoluted patchwork phi field? We add a cost term that penalizes high-frequency changes in control or high spatial curvature in the adjusted field. This pushes the controller toward simple, smooth solutions. Fragility penalty. Is the solution balanced on a knife's edge? Would a tiny disturbance blow it apart? We estimate the sensitivity of the error to perturbations. We penalize high sensitivity. This pushes the controller toward robust, stable solutions. Solutions in wide valleys, not on narrow peaks. Elegance as efficiency. Often, the simplest, most robust solution is also the most energy efficient. Aesthetic optimization naturally finds solutions that use minimal intensity of change to maintain coherence. Beauty and economy align. 3. Safety-constrained online optimization. The learning is not a free-for-all. It happens inside a safety cage. Explicit constraint clauses. The controller's search is bounded by hard rules. Max topological charge 2, actuator vist Vmax, coherence bunt use 0.8. Rollback policy. If any constraint is violated, learning stops instantly. The controller reverts to the last known safe set of parameters and may initiate a graceful shutdown of the experiment. Safety overrides adaptation. The coherence budget, the margin for learning. Before enabling adaptation, we set a learning coherence budget. 1. Exploration energy budget. The controller will make small, probing changes to learn the gradient. These probes themselves consume coherence and may temporarily increase error. We budget a small amount of worsening we can tolerate for the sake of learning. The rule? The root mean square phi error during learning must never exceed 150% of the initial error. 2. Model trust budget. The gradient is estimated from data. How much do we trust this estimate? We calculate a confidence interval for the gradient. If the confidence is low, the signal is noisy, we take smaller learning steps. The budget rule. The step size is proportional to the confidence. 3. Aesthetic deviation budget. The aesthetic costs have weights. How much are we willing to sacrifice raw error reduction for the sake of elegance? We set these weights based on the purpose. For a critical sensor, error reduction is paramount. For a public artwork, elegance may be more important. The budget defines our taste. The coherence gate and rollback trigger. The coherence gate for an adaptive controller is monitored on two timescales. Fast gate, microcycle, after each small control adjustment. What we measure, the immediate change in phi error and the constraint satisfaction. Pass rule, error decreases or holds steady, and all constraints are satisfied. Pass, learning continues. Fail rule, error increases significantly or a constraint is violated. Fail, triggers micro rollback. Slow gate, macrocycle, over a longer window, seconds, minutes. What we measure, the trend of the error and the complexity of the control signals. Pass rule. The error shows a clear downward trend to a low steady-state value. The control signals are smooth and non-oscillatory. The solution appears robust. Pass. The controller is successfully cultivated. Fail rule. The error oscillates without converging, or the control signals become chaotic and high amplitude. This indicates the controller is lost, chasing noise or stuck in a destructive resonance. Fail. The rollback trigger is multi-stage. Micro rollback. On a fast gate fail, the controller reverts the last parameter adjustment and reduces its learning step size. It's a stutter step. Macro rollback. On a slow gate fail, the controller freezes. It reverts to a safe baseline policy, a simple, conservative, precompiled control law that is known to be stable, though perhaps not optimal. It then may enter a recalibration phase, requesting new sensor data to rebuild its understanding of the gradient. A measurement scene, the optical lattice and the vibration. Let's enact our roadmap's measurement scene. Scene. An adaptive controller maintaining a delicate optical lattice, a standing wave of light, for trapping atoms, despite laboratory vibration. Goal. Hold atom loss rate below 1 atom per second, a proxy for lattice stability. The static compiler's output, fail. A pre-computed, perfect set of mirror positions. In the quiet simulation, it works. In the lab, building vibrations jitter the mirrors. The lattice shakes. Atoms spill out. Loss rate, 50 atoms per second. Fail. The adaptive controller, the pass. 1. Sensing. It uses a separate probe laser to measure the actual phi position of the lattice fringes in real time, HLS for light. Error. It computes the difference between measured and target fringe positions. 3. Learning knobs. Its knobs are the voltages to piezoelectric actuators that move the mirrors. 4. Gradient estimation. It applies tiny, dithering signals to the piezos and sees how the fringe error changes. It learns, when mirror X voltage goes up, fringes shift left. 5. Aesthetic cost. Its cost function penalizes jerky mirror motions and solutions where one mirror is doing all the work. 6. Action. It starts making corrections. Smoothly, it adjusts the piezos to counter the vibration it has learned. 7. Result. The lattice stabilizes. The atom loss rate drops to 0.8 atoms per second. The mirror adjustments are quiet, anti-phase mirror of the building's vibration frequency. A simple, elegant counterdance. Pass. The fail path, brittle learning. Suppose the controller is poorly designed, with no aesthetic cost. It might discover a bizarre solution. It vibrates mirror A wildly at 100 Hz and mirror B at 100.1 Hz, creating a beating pattern that, by chance, cancels the specific vibration pattern observed in the first minute. It works brilliantly for 5 minutes. Then the vibration pattern changes slightly. The beating pattern is now perfectly wrong, amplifying the disturbance. The lattice shatters. Atom loss rate skyrockets. Fail. The controller found an incoherent, overfitted local minimum, a brittle trick, not robust understanding. The prediction spine, the hallmarks of cultivated control. A well-designed adaptive controller yields a clear prediction spine. 1. Superior performance. An adaptive controller will achieve lower steady-state error with less control energy than a fixed, precompiled program in the presence of noise or drift. It pays the small cost of learning to reap the large reward of precision. 2. Robustness from aesthetics. Controllers optimized with aesthetic costs, penalizing complexity and fragility, will discover solutions that are more robust to unforeseen perturbations. The simple, low-curvature solution tends to have a wider basin of attraction. 3. Positive transfer. Learning on one task, stabilizing a vortex, will transfer positively to a similar task, stabilizing a different vortex or a soliton. The controller learns general principles about the phi dynamics of the system, not just a memorized sequence. Subsequent learning tasks will show reduced learning time. Falsifiability. When learning is not learning. Our falsifiability threads keep us honest about what true adaptation means. If learning merely memorizes the noise of the specific training period or endlessly explores the parameter space without convergence to a stable, low-error state, then it is not learning the underlying phi dynamics. It is dithering or overfitting. This would mean our learning rule is unfit for the physical complexity of the system. If aesthetic optimization never finds solutions that are superior, more robust, efficient, or generalizable to those found by brute force search on standard benchmarks, then our proposed aesthetic principles, simplicity, low curvature, are not aligned with physical robustness in that domain. Our sense of beauty would be disconnected from truth, forcing a reevaluation of our aesthetic axioms. These falsifiers ensure that adaptive control is a path to deeper understanding, not just another layer of opaque complexity. Triunity in adaptive control. The adaptive process masters triunity in real time. Time echo, learning rhythm. The controller operates on multiple timescales: the fast cycle of adjustment, the slow cycle of trend analysis, and the very slow cycle of policy maturation. This is temporal hierarchy. Space echo, spatial sensitivity. The phi error is a spatial map. The controller learns where to apply corrections. Does a disturbance in quadrant A require a correction in quadrant B? It learns the spatial transfer function of the system. Motion echo, dynamics of correction. The adjustments themselves have a motion, smooth drifts, gentle oscillations. The aesthetic cost shapes this motion toward graceful, efficient trajectories. A clumsy controller disrupts one echo and shatters the others. A jerky temporal adjustment, bad time echo, creates spatial ripples, bad space echo, and chaotic motion, bad motion echo. Elegance is triune harmony. Lanterns across scales, the cultivation of everything. This craft applies wherever a goal must be maintained in a fluctuating world. Near scale, prosthetic limb control. A neural link prosthetic arm has a goal: grasp cap. The static program is a predefined grip trajectory. The adaptive controller is the embedded system that reads real-time myoelectric muscle phi signals and adjusts grip strength and position to compensate for muscle fatigue, sweat, or the cap's slipperiness. Its aesthetic is smooth, human-like motion. Middle scale, smart grid balance. The grid has a goal: maintain 60 Hz frequency. The adaptive controller is the distributed management system that adjusts power output from thousands of sources in response to demand fluctuations and renewable intermittency. Its aesthetic is minimal, stable adjustments that prevent cascading failures. A protected forest has a goal: maintain biodiversity and resilience. The human stewards are the adaptive controller. They monitor species health, sensing phi-like indicators, make minimal interventions, controlled burns, predator reintroduction, guided by an aesthetic of ecological elegance, complex, stable, self-sustaining beauty. This is applied ecology as phi cultivation. The ethics of adaptation, cultivation over domination. The ethics of adaptive control is the ethics of respectful stewardship. 1. Consent through minimal intervention. The adaptive controller, by its aesthetic design, seeks the least forceful correction. It does not bulldoze the system into submission. It coaxes. This is a form of consent at the physical level, working with the system's grain, not against it. 2. Containment in learning. The safety-constrained optimization ensures the learning process itself cannot violate the system's integrity. The controller cannot experiment its way into a dangerous state. Learning is contained exploration. 3. Auditability of cultivation. The log of parameter adjustments, error values, and constraint checks is a story of cultivation. It shows how the system was guided to stability. This is crucial for debugging, for proving due diligence, and for transmitting the gardener's wisdom to the next steward. Power without adaptation is brittleness. Adaptation without aesthetics is dangerous hacking. Aesthetic optimization embodies the ethic. We will seek not just to control, but to understand and collaborate, finding the most beautiful and stable path to our goal. The recognition skill, seeing the need to cultivate. You know you need this skill when you see a bar system that works in theory, but fails in practice due to unmodeled noise. And your instinct is not to build a heavier, more rigid controller, but to ask, how can I make it listen and adjust? When your meticulously compiled wave pattern in the optical tweezer is ruined by air currents. When your traffic light algorithm causes jams because of a sudden rainstorm. When your economic policy causes unintended side effects in a different sector. The moment you think, the model is clean, but the world is messy, you have entered the domain of the adaptive artisan. The solution is to build a learning loop that closes the gap between the clean model and the messy world, guided by principles of graceful correction. The master tree location. This part, 10.3.5, is the flowering crown of book 10.3. It depends on the debugging loop, 10.3.2, for the iterative mindset, and the compiler optimization, 10.3.4, for the core mathematical machinery of gradient descent and cost minimization. It is the culmination of the programming craft. It enables the next evolution of the entire journey. The AI co-engineer, 10.5.5, which can design such adaptive controllers itself. Cautious biological control, 10.6.2, where adaptation must be hyper-gentle. And the rise of an aesthetic culture, 10.7.4, where these principles of elegant, robust design inform art, governance, and daily life. This is the transition from programming to cultivating. Return to the phi. Let us zoom out. We are cultivating patterns in a single, flowing field. The adaptive controller is itself a dynamic phi pattern, a pattern of information processing that observes phi error and emits phi correcting influences. Its goal is to create a persistent, beautiful resonance, the target pattern, within the larger, noisy symphony of the world. It is the universe, through our designed artifacts, learning to recognize and nurture coherence within itself. This is the highest form of speaking the language, not just uttering a sentence, but engaging in a conversation that improves both speaker and listener. Zenodo and the equations of cultivation. If you want to see the full mathematical derivations and exact equations behind this idea, you can search for Holophase on Zenodo. There you will find the scientific papers that this audio journey is built on. The papers formalize phi-native gradient descent using the adjoint method for PDE-constrained systems, derive the Kramer-Rao bounds on gradient estimation confidence from noisy HLS data, provide theorems linking aesthetic cost penalties like total variation to robust control theory metrics like H-infinity norm, and present case studies of adaptive stabilization in nonlinear optical and quantum systems. They provide a rigorous foundation that transforms the art of cultivation into a quantitative engineering discipline. So picture yourself in the adaptive atelier. The optical vortex is held perfectly still, a silent jewel in a sea of vibration. The controller's log scrolls calmly. Error RMS 0.02 read. Control effort 4.2 joules per hour. Solution simplicity index 0.95 high. Status cultivated. You have not just written a program, you have designed a craft. You have created a process that watches, learns, and adjusts with grace and minimal force. You have moved from a programmer of static shapes to a cultivator of living coherence. This is part 10.3.5, Adaptive Phi Controllers and Aesthetic Optimization, the Learning Craft. It is the completion of book 10.3, Phi Programming. We have journeyed from syntax through debugging, operating systems, and compilation to arrive here, at the craft of creating intelligent, elegant, and resilient conversations with reality. With this, we close the book on programming. We are now ready to enter book 10.4, Reality Engineering. We will leave the software world and step into the physical foundry. We will learn to use our hard-won programming skills to sculpt matter, shape fields, engineer defects, and create local patches of new physics, always tested first in the twin, always managed by the OS, always compiled faithfully, and now, where necessary, cultivated adaptively. We are ready to build. Remember, one field, phi, with its infinite echoes. We are no longer just its readers, its speakers, or even its programmers. We are becoming its gardeners. Salam and peace be upon you.